Bull. We are live. Bum, bum, bum.
Yay!
Hello.
Another
Welcome.
week, another dollar.
That's all we're
Or
making.
euro,
That's sad
actually.
times.
All of it.
All right, so we're just waiting for our second special guest to arrive, and when they do, we'll kick off the show proper. But hey, as always, first out the gate, the one and only Jos.
Yeah, so I mean, we say this every week, Anita, but like Jos is officially our #1 fan.
I need to write it on my my new room, my new board.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Jos. Pleasure.
Yeah, so this is the time of the show, Anita, where, like Michael was saying earlier, we just kind of catch up, find out what games, if any, people have been playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just what's been going on in the world. So
I've recently played a very unusual game.
Okay.
We went back to good old Tolkien and played a game of Tolkien, which I haven't played for ages.
Nice.
And it's always the same thing. I started and I'm like, it's too many options. I don't care. Can we play something else? And then the longer we play, I'm like, I want to do this and that, and I get more engaged. It's, I don't know. It's a weird game design. It's
for a second there, you had that expression that I have when I'm playing the game, which is the like. And if I put it here, and then two rounds later it's there, but if I put the person here, and then it's like one round, and
do this, and then I start doing it, and I'm like, oh no, I forgot. Yeah. I don't have enough corn. Then two rounds later.
Why did I put them there again?
Yeah.
As they're going around the wheel, coming back around.
It's like staring at a billion different things in front of you, going, "What on earth?" And just corn, please. Corn would be nice.
It is like I find it's right at that extreme end of like just how much information you can process when playing a game. It's kind of like you have to just dive in and then hope that a strategy emerges.
And it's so unforgiving. It's really unforgiving.
Yeah,
but it's got very nice skulls.
That is true.
So what about you?
I lose track of time and what we've been talking about. Actually, the only thing I've played, I set it up last night, is Test of Honor, which is a kind of feudal Japan themed skirmish game. And
the way you pronounce it, Rory, it does sound like feudal Japan.
Feudal Japan. So think of like, all those, for me, wonderful like Japanese samurai movies, like the Seven Samurai or Kagemusha or something like that. It's a very cinematic game with at a kind of skirmish level, really super elegant rules, like incredibly elegant, that creates a feeling of a cinematic game being played out as you're doing it. And I was determined to kind of create solo rules for it, so I was just testing some of them last night because I don't have anyone to play with. So
how did it go, the solo thing?
How did it go? I think that's a testament to the game. It's just really fun watching how it plays out. One of the things I've done is assign the characters like stances, so they can be reckless, aggressive, calculated, defensive, or cautious, and then that will determine how the AI acts when it gets a turn to activate. So it's just kind of funny going, well, it's obvious that this character should go here, but because it's reckless, it's just going to attack the nearest person.
Okay, yeah.
So it creates kind of swings in the game. And for me, it's equivalent to like solo role-playing. It's like you're both in the game because you're making choices, but you're also then at a higher level watching it play out at the same time. And it's got the right level of complexity that allows that to work. Because some games are, when they have a solo element, the game itself is pretty complex, and so the AI becomes an additional complexity that you have to deal with. But because the rules of this are so fluid and intuitive, you can kind of get a bit meatier with how the AI works, because it's not too much of a mental overload to have to deal with that. And I'm talking way too much about this, but
it's okay.
Well, no, it's interesting, but it's also good because we're filling time until Tanya shows up. So it's all good.
Exactly.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, so I haven't played. I have borrowed Arkham Horror off Michael.
The card game specifically, yeah.
Okay.
Which we've played before, but we've played like
in airports.
Obviously, a 2-player game in airports, yeah, which is not the most conducive surrounding to learning games and playing them.
True.
Yes. Yeah, it's usually like we're incredibly jet lagged or exhausted after a convention, and we're like, right, we're gonna learn how to play this game, and then we realize we've gotten a bunch of rules wrong while we're trying to figure it all out.
You know what? Marvel Champions was going to become the traveling game. Like I spent like 40 quid on a really like fancy tiny little case thing. Hey, a wild Tanya appears.
Hey, Tanya.
So yeah, I spent like 40 quid on this lovely sort of case, and it has never left the house.
Sure.
Not once. Sad times. But hey, Tanya's here now. Welcome.
Hi, Tanya.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I am late.
You're not late. You're fashionably delayed. And
you're on Irish time. It's okay.
Yeah. A wizard never arrives late.
Just think about like at a trade show where you're racing from one hole to the next.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that. I remember when I worked for Think Fun and we didn't even have a room. Do you remember that, Anita? And we were meeting in like small like corners and whatnot because we didn't have like any meeting space. That was
actually Think Fun did have a room, but they didn't give it to you. That's the thing, right?
That's more the thing.
Potato, 6 of 1.
That's right. It was more for the sales meeting than it was for mine.
Who needs new products? We only need the sales department.
We can talk about all that wonderful bitterness as we go through the rest of the show. Cool. So we are going to kick off properly. I will hit the countdown, and we're back in a few seconds. Don't know why I just glanced at my wrist. I haven't owned a watch in approximately 28 years. So I don't know. We'll see. We're back in 20. Hey, it's almost like having an introduction sequence. It is Wednesday. It's 7 o'clock in the UK, 2 o'clock on the East Coast of the United States of America, 8 o'clock. Well, actually, it's 6 minutes past the hour, but deal with it. In Central European time. And it's time for another Hub Games Hangout with us, your illustrious hosts, Michael and Rory. And we have, count them, glorious special guests. I'm going to announce them in order of arrival. So first off, from White Castle Games, who are a games agency based out of glamorous Austria, is Anita Landgraf. Thank you for joining us, Anita.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. And all the way from the US of A, probably the fanciest title that we've had.
You got to get your trophies right, Michael.
Oh, Canada? Oh,
Canada.
I can only apologize for the incredible amount of offense that I have given you there. But yeah, you definitely do have the fanciest title of anybody we've ever had on the show thus far. What if you being? Hang on, let me get this right. Director of Global Product Acquisitions.
That's correct.
I think we should start a leaderboard, and go for fanciest title.
Fanciest people.
No, it's or inventor relations. It's all the same.
Excuse me.
Push as fast as possible. Okay,
I don't want to be nasty here, but my business card says Queen of the Castle.
Yes.
Just saying.
That's by far the coolest.
I like it. That's good. All right, so you can both be joint first. That sound okay? Joint first, number one. And
I'm the stodgy corporate, and you're the fun and creative.
Well, I mean,
cool person.
it's partly why I kind of wanted to get you both together on the chat at the same time, because your roles are like technically similar, but what you're actually going to be doing and what you're looking for and how you're talking to people, I imagine, is vastly different. And I think it would be really, I'd love to learn more about that. And I think it would be great to kind of share that with other people, that they see it's not just one thing. There's variation within the role as well. So hopefully we'll get to kind of chat about that tonight.
Oh, yeah, we should probably mention the company that Tanya works for. It is the powerhouse that is Hasbro.
Indeed, which is why you thought I was from the US, because actually Hasbro is based in the US, and up until the pandemic I was in the US, but I'm currently standing in my home country, Canada.
Hey, which bit, may we ask?
Just outside of Toronto. Well, 2 hours north of Toronto for you Europeans that don't like long drives. But for us, it's just 2 hours north.
That's it. Just a mere stone's throw away.
It's like in Ireland, you get halfway across the country.
Yeah, I'm in a different country when I drive 2 hours.
Yeah.
I can be in 2 different countries, actually. No, 3.
Wow.
Oh, that's nuts. It would take a long, long time, to get across the country.
Yeah.
But I guess I could get out in maybe 3 hours if I were heading directly to the US. So, but anyway.
But the question is, why would you want to?
So. At this point, it's true.
All right, let's get this show on the road. Rory, so give us your spiel on this episode.
Oh yeah, so my intention was I knew you both as being involved in inventor relations, but at 2 kind of different scales and sides, and possibly looking for different things. So I thought it'd be really interesting to each week we tried to talk to different people and get like a kind of more human look at what people bring to gaming or the industry. So I kind of want to learn about the role you take, how you work with people. A couple of trick questions in here as well to ask. More human questions, I think. That should be fun to answer. But yeah, it's just my point for all of these conversations is that people come away and go, that was a really interesting conversation. That it's not so much like an interview, it's more just we all know about the field from different perspectives, and it's just having shining a light on this section of it tonight, and hopefully people who have games in development, or maybe missing out on cons might learn something from this conversation as well, and then hopefully some seasoned designers might learn a thing or two as well. Those who know better might learn something as well. That would be like, yes, if that happens.
We never learn. It's fighting a losing battle. Cool. So I'd like to kick it off by if you could both sort of like tell us a little bit about yourselves and your individual roles. Tanya, would you mind sort of like kicking off the festivities? What do how did you get to be at Hasbro, and what's your sort of like role there? What do you do?
So I am the one for Hasbro who is looking for our next big board game idea or card game or whatever game idea, not video games, but more the haptic games. Mm-hmm. So anything that's coming from an external source inwards is typically going through me. I'm the gateway. So I'm the one that meets regularly with, am on the leadership team of the games, Hasbro Gaming. And so I get to hear what they're looking for, the things that they want. And then I, in turn, go out and try and find that. So so I'm the first filter of ideas coming into the company, whether it's from the one inventor who's creating kind of as a side hustle, or whether it's a big invention house or tech company that has an idea for Hasbro, they kind of filter through me that way. I came to Hasbro, so this is my dream job. I like you are a big gamer. I love games, and so this is like not a virtual backdrop. This is just a part of my collection.
It's a blanket.
That's right. It's a curtain that I drop for things just like this. So I have played games with I don't know if Micah we have, but I've definitely at events played games. It's part of the thing that I love to do. So this is my dream job. I got here. I won't go through the whole thing, but I actually started my career as a teacher. Was hired by a company called Think Fun. Who I started with some educational initiatives with them. And then eventually the owner was like, I don't really want to, like, I don't have the energy for or the desire to go source new ideas from the inventor community. But Tanya, you love people, you should do it. And I was thrilled. I'll never forget, you all know Mike Hurdle, who is like my couple times predecessor, but who I adore and love. I met him for the first time through when I was at Think Fun, and I met him, and I'll never forget it because he was like, oh, well, I do for Hasbro what you do for Think Fun. And I was floored. I thought I was the only one that did this role. That's how naive I was at the beginning. And I was like, what? There's others of this people that do this role? And he gave me his card, and I treasured it. And yeah, so anyway, I started there, and then wanted at some point to kind of like break the ceiling I felt I was under and wanted to do something big in corporate. So Hasbro, I have always admired the kind of the games I grew up playing back then were games that Hasbro is part of their legacy portfolio. So the people I knew from Hasbro, like Mike Hurdle and Mike Gray and others, were just like salt of the earth, top-notch people. So I really resonated with them as well as individuals. So that's why I was always keen on working for Hasbro. So here I am.
Nice one. So Anita, you obviously are while in a sort of similar area, it's like the complete opposite side of the coin, I think. You're the you're the one going to Tanya with like, hey, you should check this out because it is awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about White Castle Games.
I like starting with myself. I grew up a gamer. I think my older brother turned me into that, and he introduced me to role-playing games and Talisman and Hero Quest and all that stuff when we were younger. And I think maybe like Tanya, when she started, I never had the idea that there were jobs there. And it's just, I guess it's not on anybody's list of, I want to become a whatever. And so when I studied at the university, political science. And during my studies, I worked in a board games cafe in Vienna. And there was every Monday a group of game designers under like the support of the White Castle Games Agency, which already existed back then. Mm-hmm. And they were testing their prototypes there. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. Somebody has to make prototypes of this game.
They just like pop into existence magically, blessed by the fairies.
It was like really, I never spent a thought on that, even though, I mean, being maybe more in the geek section of board games before I started to work in that board games cafe, which turned me also a bit more family. Mm-hmm. I knew Pegasus and Steve Jackson games. I think they were and of course Ravensburger, like the classic kids games that you'll play as a kid. I didn't think about publishing companies either, part of these two that I know. And then I was so interested in Monday. Fortunately, it was always a very slow day, so I had the time to sometimes play test with them during work and read the rules that they had written. And so Ronald Hofstetter, Ronnie, who started the company, the agency, he asked me to work for him part-time. So I was still studying and then working in the bar and then working in his office. And at a certain point, I knew that I wanted to be more in games. Mm-hmm. And I did finish the political science thing, but I didn't go as far as I wanted. But never mind. So and I worked full time there at White Castle, and then out of the sudden, for me, Ronnie asked me, "Hey, like we had lunch together," and he was like, "Okay, I have a life choice for you. You can either lose your job or buy the agency." Because I want to quit. and so I ended up owning the company. And since then, I'm happy I made the decision. Of course, there's good times and bad times, and being even though we have more than 140 games released on the market, and I'm happy about all the projects that we can do, but of course, there's good times and bad times. And it's only 3 people. It's me and Andreas, who many of you, I guess, know from the fairs. And then one other lady who's taking care of finances and so. And you know how long it takes to just read rules and play games and sort it out and write feedbacks. So every now and then I'm a bit overwhelmed by the decision to do it in such a small team. I guess you know that. But yeah, I'm still so happy I can do this. Yeah, that's my story.
It's and like now everybody knows.
And she's one of the best, like that is out there in terms of like agents to really take time with the inventors and help hone their prototypes and do the play testing and everything else. So it's and she's really good at pitching. So I'm always confident that what I'm going to see is something that that she feels, that Anita, you feel that is something I'm looking for, not just like I want to show this because it's Hasbro and then I get to say, yeah, I showed it for Hasbro and they weren't interested. You actually, do a really good job at like that matchmaking in terms of the concepts you have and who to pitch them to. So
yeah, thanks.
So please continue, Anita. Sorry.
So the concept of the agency is that we, on the one hand, work a lot with inventors and also a lot with newcomers. We have a lot of regular inventors we work with, but we are very open for newcomers who maybe their first game is crap, like really, and we are not afraid to tell them that it is crap. But we try, Andy and I try to see the potential in the designers. So, but by crap, I mean, maybe it's been done. Very often it's just been done. And usually when you start designing, you don't have an overview of what's been done so far. So very often that's an answer. Yeah, it's a nice idea, but it doesn't work. And then we really give them an elaborate feedback on their games. And very often they come back to us with another game. And the same thing goes for the publishers. So I try to really think about, like before fairs, usually when they take place, I really look into every publisher's latest releases, what were the last communication we had, what were the last wish lists they had, what were the last feedbacks they gave us on other games, and then also what games do I have, which should I push, what's maybe more interesting for particular publishers or so. So and that's also something I'm part of the playing. I really enjoy finding those matches.
I think that's a really important thing to probably highlight about the value of your role, from a publisher perspective, is that you're going to bring something that you have kind of handpicked for that publisher in particular. And you've also honed the ability to pitch the idea to really get to the core of what the game or the idea is. So you're not wasting anyone's time, because I think that's a big challenge with some designers. You can see the kind of scattershot approach that they're taking. They're just firing an idea out to lots of people. And you've built up trust with people in the industry. And I think it's probably a thing that people don't, if they just look at the website of the company, they don't necessarily get that, but that's what a lot of people are trading on within the industry. It's like, if I recommend a game to someone, I don't pitch, other people's games, but if I do say to someone, here's a game I think you should look at, they'll pay attention because they know I'm not going to do it on a kind of a regular basis. I, I'm very mindful of like Tanya's time and your time. If I say, take a look at this, and I think that's a crucial part of the industry. And I don't think it's a gatekeeping type thing. I think it's more like we're kind of looking out for each other and trying to make everyone's life a little bit easier and better, and make sure the best stuff rises to the top as well.
Isn't that so amazing about all the people working in this industry? Everybody is so nice and supportive.
We try our best, it's true. Jos actually has a question, Rory, which is, Rory, how do you know Tanya and Anita? Because Rory knows everybody.
I don't.
You do, you liar. You at least give off the vibe that like you are the glue that binds us all together.
Yeah, right. So Tanya, I know we met. It would have been at like New York Toy Fair originally, possibly through Mary Cousins at maybe would that have been it at like Connolly's or something
from Chitag?
It could have been. I would have been a big fan of Rory Story Cubes, so I would have been like, oh my god, I'm gonna meet Rory Story Cubes.
That's his real last name as well, like, which is always
that's
good.
right. That's Rory. It's not Rory O'Connor. So yeah, it could have very well been at one of like Mary's the master networker and Chitag's amazing. So it could have been the Chitag night in New York.
I totally want to get Mary on. I want to get the right topic and get her on.
She would be awesome. Maybe not until after her event, which is coming up in November.
Yes.
So she's full on that. But after that, yeah.
And Anita, we've met. I don't know if it's through Tanya or Dougal or who's at Hasbro as well, or it's just directly at Nuremberg.
I think because Tanya is very good in connecting people too. I think it was through Tanya, and I think it was in Nuremberg. Yeah. And I do remember that I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna meet Rory Story Cubes, Rory.
Well, my moment of pride is we made you cry playing Holding On.
Yeah, that was really. I think I told you before when you asked me to join the show. It was one of the most amazing game experiences, and I know it's not for everyone. Maybe I don't know, or I think it is for everyone. I think it's just you have to have that mindset when you play the game that it's an experience. It's not like a regular game. It's a ride that you take. I don't know. It was really interesting. And this happened even though we played like maybe we were a little drunk already. I don't know.
Yes.
In a bar in Dublin.
In Dublin, yeah.
Surrounded by other people playing other games, like, and it's still. I was so connected.
Was it during one of the B4 conferences? If it was in Dublin, was it?
Yes.
Or
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was funny watching. It was great actually watching you over my shoulder play, and you're just like, oh my god, I need a drink after that.
When we do a reprint, I'm going to take everything that Anita said and put it on the front of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now think about it. I mean, nurses and everyone is so much. I mean, it's also the story itself, like the particular story about the guy you have to take care about, but it's also the stress, the management of you are a nurse and you can overwork, but then you will be missing maybe the next shift or so. It was really an interesting insight. Yeah.
So I'm trying to. This is great and feeding our egos wonderfully, but I got to steer the conversation back. I'm trying to think. So that I'm trying to tie that in. So like Holding On is quite a different game, right? So I'm trying to think, Tanya. I know. Well, how do I phrase it? I know Tanya, like Hasbro have their kind of Bible that they put together of what they're looking for. That gets sent out to designers and inventors and say, okay, we're kind of looking for this kind of thing.
A wish list, yeah.
So how is that compiled? Because and what involvement do you have in that process?
it's compiled by the game leads. So I'm the one like requesting it, but I don't write it because I'm not the decision maker. Like I'm not the one who decides. I'm just the one who goes out to try and deliver what they want. So it's getting them to kind of put that together in like a concise document that kind of outlines. We are right now, and it's fairly typical, but we're divided in consumer focused teams. So there's like preschool, kids, family, and adult. So going to each of those, and Monopoly, which is its own entity. And then so going to those teams and saying like, what is it you would wish for from the inventor community, and then getting that together in a document.
Okay. And Anita, then, like, what's the approach with White Castle? Are you filtering that out to people? Are you just accepting, are you kind of panning for gold by just looking at lots of different things? Or like how do you operate in terms of trying to filter game submissions?
And we definitely are panning for gold. I mean, of course, we have a strong relationship with a group of inventors, most of them based in or around Vienna, and also with a couple of other inventors from Germany, for example. And we don't share the wish list, such a wish list as such, because of course it's a confidential thing. But we maybe give some clues on which areas would be interesting if anybody's working on something that could fit into this or that category. And then with designers who we work together with often, they maybe just we maybe just talk about an idea even before they start working on it. And then I could give them maybe the right spin that I think could be interesting. And then on the other hand, I mean, we don't lack submissions, as I think most publishers also don't lack submissions. The trick is to get back to all the designers who send you stuff that you maybe don't like or maybe don't need right now for whatever reason. And then on the other hand, find that thing that works for what you're looking for. And in our case, as we are so looking for such a broad spectrum, I mean, kind of the only things that we are not particularly looking for are like very long games, very complex games, like at Tolkien, which we talked about before the real show went on, would be just too complex for what we do. I'd enjoy playing it maybe, but it's not what we are looking for. It's every now and then we do something like that because we're doing a project with Alex Pfister, for example, right now. But that's also because he's just close by and we've known him for a very long time and worked with him on other games too. So actually I'm looking at the game and then I try to put on different glasses, like publisher glasses. And I try to think, okay, could this fit into any of the publishers I work together with? And if it doesn't, and I still think it's a very awesome game, then I try to, to filter out why I think it's awesome and then see how to make a good pitch. Because it is okay to pitch something that Hasbro is not particularly asking for, because you might not want to lose the next best thing. Of course, chances maybe are lower, but if I think it's a really good game that somebody should look into, then I pitch it anyway. I think it's a lot of filtering, yes, and analyzing, but it's also maybe intuition in this.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Sorry, Michael, I'm hogging all the questions.
No.
Like, how do you, like for both of you, like, how do you filter? Like, there's been such an explosion of games and games being published, and like, there's a lot going to Kickstarter, but I would say there's, even 10 times or whatever more of that as being like concepts and prototypes that are being pitched to people. Like, we struggle to keep on top of submissions. Like, how do you manage to to do that? Like, have you any tricks or tips that you've developed to help you quickly, get through the pile of emails or physical submissions that you've
I was going to ask something similar. Like, your curation process is going to, you are both sort of like these incredible filters. As Rory said earlier, it's separating the gold from the rest of the shale in the sand. So how does that even work for you two?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So since I am a company the size of Hasbro, like the biggest game company in the world, has one person doing this role. So I have colleagues that do toy, but I'm the one doing games. So I can't, like, on one hand, I can't possibly see everything. I used to, when I worked for smaller companies, see everything and grow my network and all of those. I still want to grow my network because you never know where the next best thing will come from. I'll rely on people like Anita to kind of, that's why she's super valuable, is because she does that first filter for me, which is good. I'm also seeing probably 3,000 games a year submissions. So it's a lot. So how I filter is because I've seen a lot. So there's a lot of historical. It's not I'm going in cold. So sometimes I've seen things before. I know how the team has reacted to something I've shown similar. And so, like, sometimes that will be, I pitched that before and they weren't interested because of X, Y, or Z, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of historical, there's a lot of gut and instinct. Me as a gamer, it's hard. It's been super hard in 2020, but one of the reasons why I go to a few conferences that there's one that I get to play. There's two, another one that's kind of social that you guys mentioned before that I get to play at. A lot of the times I'm in meetings the whole time. If it's in Europe, thankfully, European industry likes to play after hours. So we often are playing in bars and stuff, which is nice. So I know when I see something new, like when you see something, if you show me something and I'm surprised, that means something to me. I've learned that means something to me. So I've got to follow that instinct because I've seen a lot. So if you've got a new mechanism or a new game mechanic or whatnot, then that also means something to me. But ultimately it matters by what the team is looking for. So it could be the next best party game, the next best card game. If we're not looking for those type of things, then it's like, darn it, kind of thing. Like, it's a missed opportunity as a gamer for me. But thankfully right now, the thing about Hasbro too, that Anita mentioned, like if she thinks it's good, she'll pitch it. And that's good because, you never know. I may send you a wish list last month and everything changed this month. Like that's the thing about a big corporate company is people heads are changing, leadership changes, etc. It changes more than with smaller companies when you've got like a CEO at head built the company, they're not going anywhere. Whereas with Hasbro, it's like people managing that. So so there could be something where, like, for instance, we are now looking at card games and party games and gateway games and like all of these kinds of things. And that's super new within the last like couple of months. So like everyone else is looking for a gateway game, we're entertaining those as well. So it's so suddenly my net, if you will, has broadened kind of thing in scope where before I wasn't looking at those things. But again, if I'm looking at a gateway game, I've played all the best gateway games. I know what it means to Hasbro to be a gateway game, which is different than another company. So it's like I've got specifics because we don't want to just do more of. We want to do like, what can Hasbro bring to the table that others can't in this scenario? So it's like, it's kind of putting like a why Hasbro layer onto it. So I'm always like, I've got all this. I've got like past what I've seen before, what I as a gamer know, what I know from the team. And I may bring in 3,000, but I'm pitching like, let's say a quarter of that in. And and we only do anywhere from, let's say 8 to 20 new concepts. So I get rejected just as much as an inventor does on a regular basis from my internal team. So I learn from that always. Like every rejection, I take it as a learning. Like, what is it that they didn't like about it? And so that I don't show them the same thing again in the near future, or else I'll be fired because I'll be like, I'll never get hits kind of thing for them.
I just picture you with this big like cloth bag where you're like, this one, no. This one, no. This one, no.
This one's got robots. This one's got dinosaurs. This one's got dinosaur robots.
This one is the same as previous, but it's a black packaging. I know that. But may I add something to what Tanya just said? Because when you do the thing you do in a meeting, it's visible. Like I can see when Tanya is processing all this information, experience, the intuition, everything. It's like you can see that, and it's like a super high speed computer. It's like, and then ding, she spits out the right decision. It's incredible to pitch something to Tanya because you can really see that, and you have this ability. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong word, but you have this power to share the core of your decision in 1 or 2 sentences. That's really amazing. Like in no time. Like sometimes we pitch, I don't know, 10 games or so in half an hour, and you're like, you come up with, you even find the time to give us that feedback, which is also important to us. To like maybe pitch something that's more useful for you next time, and that's just incredible.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because I have such high regard for the people on the other side of the table in a meeting, because I know it's not an easy thing to be an inventor. So no idea for me is a bad idea. It may not be right for us, but I'm always trying to give feedback, so that exactly what Anita said. Next time when you come show me it, you'll know why I rejected it. On the first, I always say, because I've actually I'm not a person who likes confrontation or rejecting people, and I reject people a ton. So I've gotten used to that because I have to. But I've seen in, like, especially with, like, say at Shy Tag, when I'm talking to a brand new inventor, they've been waiting all day just to see Hasbro. So I come up and it's like, it's not this bad, but let's say it's Monopoly with dogs. And it's like, we wouldn't pay for that. We would do that internally, but I'm crushing their dreams as I'm talking, and I can see it in their face. They were all hyper excited when I arrived, and then they just slowly, their energy, it kills me to do that. But I also don't want to waste anybody's time. And I don't I won't take in a pity submission, like, oh, I've rejected them a bunch, I better take one in. Like, I don't want to waste people's time either. So, but I'm trying to give feedback. So thanks, Anita, for recognizing that.
I'm just going to put my dog Monopoly game away.
I have a picture of you.
Of course, this is a trend now, Michael. Yeah.
Tanya, I picture you going, it's not me, it's Hasbro. So I'm actually going to come back to that idea of like how invested someone is in what they bring, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there. But Anita, like, how do you curate?
Yeah, I guess you're on the complete other side, so you have like the fire hose of ideas just pointed straight at you.
Yeah, actually, we have a little trick that we use. So there's 2 ways of presenting us new game ideas. It's either through a submission process where I have to pay an examination fee, or show it to us personally, either in a video call or in an event, or meeting us in our office in Vienna or wherever we are at the moment. So this means, and I have special times reserved for these game presentations. So it's 2 hours Wednesday evening usually, and 2 hours Thursday morning. So, but I don't read through rules. I mean, of course, in the end, you always end up reading this or that rule anyway. But in general, when somebody submits a rule, we are you can either meet us in this or that occasion, or submit a working prototype through the examination process. And this helps us to just regulate our time. Maybe we miss some very, very good ideas because someone is pissed that the next opportunity for them is in 6 months, or that's an extra, or in 6 weeks or so, and they don't want to wait that long. But I think it's for us, as we are such a small team, I think it's the only reasonable way to work with, and it turned out really well like this. So we don't lack submissions, but we don't have this overcrowded inbox of game submission rules or videos or whatever, because we just respond to them. Thank you very much for your submission, and we are open for that. But please follow these rules, so to say, and yeah, that gets everything scheduled.
I think I might be inspired by your process.
Yeah, I think like really what helped me, because in the beginning it was just unregulated, but these 4 hours a week that are open for designers to show their stuff. And then also additionally, we have a weekly meeting with game designers in Vienna, which is also open for anybody who wants to either just test the prototype or check out how other game designers work, or present their own prototype. So that's also another opportunity. But it's also just this evening, this one evening.
So I'm curious. So if they're sending it in kind of, let's say, blind, where it's like the game and the rules, there's a fee associated with that part of it, but
that's the fee, yeah.
Yeah, so they're charged a fee if they're kind of sending it in blind, but if they're scheduling like a 1 hour call or whatever, or 30-minute call, whatever it might be, that's more just a matter of timing, because you can turn it around more quickly.
And also, what I always say is, when it's a meeting, I take the freedom to stop, like after 10 or 15 minutes or less, to stop at any time, basically, when I see that it's not interesting for us, and I'm like ready to give feedback, let's say. And I mean, every designer has the opportunity to check out our website. We have in German and in English some basic like concepts of what we're looking for and what we're not looking for, and what we expect of a prototype and what not. So nobody has to like go through the process of illustrating prototypes or so, unless they really want to. But we take raw ones as well, for example, so they have the chance to look at that. And if somebody shows up with a game concept that just doesn't fit that at all, I guess everybody would be okay if I just say, sorry, that's not for us. Maybe give them some background information on how to approach this whole industry or the concept of being a game designer. But yeah, that's the deal.
I guess sorry, Tanya, you go for it.
Well, no, I was just wondering, do you take concepts from like you said, you're very localized, but if let's say an American designer who doesn't travel to Europe and all the shows in Europe and whatnot, and doesn't have the connections with the Ravensburgers and the Peggespiels and the Schmidtspiels and blah, 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 do you take on clients from America and then pitch their games in Europe?
Sure, totally, yeah. I mean, we were even more open when we were still a direct partner of Hasbro as a broker.
Yep.
So before you started there.
Yeah.
You took our business.
But we are still, I'd say, quite connected to an international game designer scene. So we have a lot of submissions or contacts, presentations, meetings, whatever, from all over the world, and it's no problem for us to do a video call like we are doing now.
Yeah.
And check out the games there. And maybe we speak English, French, Spanish, German, and I have some knowledge about other weird languages, maybe not so like Hungarian, which is not so common. So we are not afraid to get a rule book that's maybe not 100% translatable or so for the designer, if we have the original language in the background, because I feel that in some countries, I think some publishers maybe lose a good concept because maybe a designer is not so capable of translating it into a different language. And it's particularly at a fair, for example, if you get something pitched in a bad language and you've already seen 200 concepts that day, and you try to connect the dots of what this person is saying, sometimes it's just not possible. So I think it's also interesting for designers who are maybe looking for someone who is language-wise maybe useful to pitch their games, to get their games into other countries.
It's funny, like when I'm at Essen in particular, I try to go to the booths where maybe English isn't the first language, because you'll kind of see something, and if you can kind of scratch the surface, there's usually something really interesting there. And Tanya, this ties into, you're talking about being surprised. We describe it as we're looking for something that makes us go, huh! That, you're looking at it and something happens and you're like, oh, that was unexpected. And that happened with me with Flip Over Frog, which is on the shelf here. Wonderful, like elegant area control game for all the family. Hint, hint. But I literally made that sound when Baranu was demonstrating it to me, and the aesthetic on it was a very kind of cute, pastely Japanese style. So I kind of knew a lot of people would just kind of pass it by because it wasn't your stereotypical kind of, well, there is no stereotypical kind of like European art, but it looked quite, I think, childish.
It was very much the dictionary definition of kawaii. It was like, it was teddy bears and there were lollipops, and it was there's one frog in this.
Yeah, but the gameplay was incredible, and it that for me, I look for that moment that just makes me kind of go, huh, and then I know there's something in that game then that's kind of a bit special.
I was going to ask both you, Tanya and Anita. Obviously, as humans, we have our wonderful, integral, inbuilt biases. There are games that we really, really love, and there are games that we don't love, genres that we're totally into, genres that we're not into. How do you sort of like, how are you able to sort of see past those biases? If somebody comes up to you and says, okay, I've got this game, and it's, immediately it's something that you personally don't like, but you think it still has something. How do you sort of like, reconcile that in your head?
May I?
Yeah, please.
I try to think as someone that I think would like the game. Like, I try to be a person that I know would like to play it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just putting yourself in like somebody else's shoes. Okay.
Yes.
But is it like, I must put myself into those?
Is it?
No, it's not, or maybe that's even more so. I try to think of who, because I think more of which publisher could like it. Mm-hmm. If I look at it from a, like, marketing the game concept perspective, and then I feel like, okay, so who would I pitch it to? Who would be the person? And then I'm like, okay, what would be the things this person would say as a negative about it, and what would be the positive things that they'd say about it? So that's kind of analyzing it, trying to analyze it from a different perspective. Of course, it's a mind game, and it's not sure that this is the real outcome that would happen, but this helps me to get there. And I want to quote the owner of a publishing company, which the name I won't say. And I pitched him. After. Yeah, I pitched him a game once. It's a very simple filler in between card game. And I pitched it to him, and he said, "This is stupid. I can sell this." So that's what I try to do. I try to think about that reaction. Who would say, "Oh," when I show this game, and that kind of helps me to get around my likes and dislikes. Although I kind of like most of the games in general.
Yeah, I feel like I've worked with. When I came in the industry, as I mentioned, I worked for a company called Think Fun, which the mission was to make the world better thinkers. And then I did a year at retail as a buyer, so I'll skip over that. And then I did a year at Marbles, the brain store, which was also a very let's put smart products out in the world. And then after that, I went to Hasbro. And in my interview at Hasbro, they were like, "Do you really think you can source mass market games? Because you've been very specialty." And I said, yes, I do believe I can. And you should give me a shot. And my first contracted game at Hasbro was a game called Don't Step in It, which was all about not stepping in Play-Doh poop piles, right? Yep. And I'm like, see, I can do this. And it went on to sell millions. So here's the thing for me. I am not a game snob. I know in our community, gamers are known to be game snobs. If I want to get Board Game Geek riled up, I say Monopoly or something very mass markety, and I'll get piled on and pummeled. And I look at it as, I don't really care what the game is. I just care that people want to play games. And I've seen the power, no matter how much you may or may not, but you may hate Monopoly. I've seen it from the standpoint of it's known around the world. I must admit, back in the day, I might have been resistant. This is pre-Hasbro, but I might have been resistant to, because we did game nights with my family, to introduce Monopoly. My husband insisted, we did, and then I saw my kids play it for weeks after that on their own without adult supervision, and I was like, there's just something there. And I love that. So it taught me a real lesson. So I'm as long as I'm bringing something good to the world that brings joy. And I know in mass market, that's very different than hobby market. So mass market, when I go out and I see games that people just not gamers, but just regular busy moms with kids, families, whatever, they love the Jengas and the Clues and the Monopolies and the Operations and the Troubles and all of those. And I'm super proud of that. So I never kind of feel any game is beneath me or beneath somebody out there is going to like it. And that's what I focus on. I remember my predecessor, we all know Mike Gray. So, and Mike is very much a guy who I love dearly, and his heart is in everything. So he was like, I'm so sorry, Tanya, now that you're working for Hasbro and the games that they're doing. And I'm like, I don't feel the same way. I feel like I'm still bringing joy into the world. Am I happy now that we're doing more games with substance? Absolutely. As a gamer, I am. But when I was sourcing social media and, those kinds of games before, I wasn't hating it kind of thing. I was like, I don't know. I feel there's different games that are right for different people.
So that kind of leads on nicely to the next question I had in mind. My sense is the world of gaming has changed a lot in the last 5 years, big time in terms of how they're promoted, they're consumed, who's creating them, and even more so recently in terms of more calls for inclusion and diversity in both game creators and gaming audiences as well. It's changing. I'm wondering what changes you're both seeing in terms of gamers, ideas that are being submitted to you? Like, are you seeing more diversity in that? And has this changed how you look at games, or what you're looking for as well? So are you seeing your potential audience change, and how's that affecting your kind of process? Anita, I'll start with you because Tanya was talking last.
So have the game submissions changed?
Well,
like the style of games is one part of the question, right?
Yeah, so I'll kind of break it down. So, I mean, the first thing is are you seeing the audience for games changing? Is the first thing. Like, is it broadening? Is it growing? Are you seeing different people coming in? And if so, how is that affecting how you're looking at games?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult to say that from the inside. I guess it's like that effect that you maybe have when you look at an old video game or watch a 90s movie, like a simple comedy or so. It's the comedies that are made these days are the same core elements, but they look different. They have a different look. They have a different feel. They have a different humor, but the bases are still the same. So of course, it's evolving. Also, the taste of the gamers is evolving. I'm not sure if that's kind of it's evolving towards something better or worse. It's just always changing. That's at least what I think. I do have the feeling that it's right now it's a phase of a broader range of people who are enjoying playing board games and who there's less or don't you have anything better to do, go outside or party or whatever. So I think that's an interesting development that young people, like student aged people, see that as they can do that on their weekends, like meet up and play games and don't feel dull. So I think there are times, and maybe there will be again, are times when this is a trend and when it is not. And I don't think it's sometimes there's this discussion about how can we make board games cool, and that's well, it's I don't think there's so much point in that question. The question, like, how do we promote board games in general? I think the best way to promote board games in general is to create cool board games who pick up the trends and the styles and so on.
Well, maybe a kind of a more accurate or refined question for you might be then, if we're seeing the kind of gaming audience change and like more teens and everything playing games, are you seeing that reflected in the inventors who are pitching to you and the themes of games that are being pitched to you?
Yes and no. I mean, maybe not pitched, but maybe what gets through. So, for example, we have, I think I even showed this to you once. There's a game that I'm very fond of, Kyoto, which is going to be released this autumn with Deep Print Games. It's a satirical game by a team of inventors, Sabine Harrer and Johannes Krenner, who is a really, really very talented designer. And it's a plane. It's a game where you basically negotiate. It's a very plain negotiation game, which I think the market hasn't seen for quite a while. It's definitely and it's about, you are like members of a climate conference, you're politicians, and you try to negotiate who gets rid of which pollution producing wealth parts, whatever. So and I think and we have this game in our portfolio for years, and we've had it with several publishers who looked closely into it and who tested it and who were like, and everyone like, yeah, but global climate thing change, it's too serious. So maybe that's a thing. So I think there's also your incredible holding on. So I think maybe there's a bit more space right now for experience-based games, which are about the theme more than about a very clever, new, innovative mechanic. So, but on the other hand, I mean, it's still a specialized product. So I don't know, but yeah, that was really interesting because a publisher had it and turned it down, this Kyoto game, and they had it and turned it down again. I was like, I'd love to make it, but were people gonna buy this? And then suddenly last year it was like, Fridays for Future, awesome, let's publish this game.
Brilliant.
So this definitely. So I think that such trends definitely impact on games as well.
Cool. So I'll take that as a maybe.
Yes, please take it as a maybe. Maybe Tanya has a more specific opinion on that.
Well, so Hasbro, being mainly a mass market company, is always has a lens of, like, I don't know if we could ever do a holding on scenario because it is very specialty and it's gonna go, on a more of a mass market shelf. So back to the question of diversity, I feel so Hasbro is very much at the heart and core of it is it's about bringing great play experiences to children all over the world, regardless of race, color, gender, etc. So every game that we don't always get it right, but I can tell you that every game that we publish goes through a scrutiny of like through PR and through others, that is like, do we have the right mix? Is this culturally insensitive, or is it culturally sensitive enough? That kind of thing. And we'll stay away from a lot of things and a lot of different themes that others won't, simply because we, being the big company, will for sure get slammed if we are, nor do we want to be portrayed as being culturally insensitive. So that's not, it's very important to us that we are a family company and we do things based on making children's lives better. So there is definitely do we do enough of it? That's what this year has really kind of put a magnifying glass on it, both internally for the company as well as the products that we do. So it's very much like under a lens at the moment. From an audience perspective, I see the hobby market growing immensely as well, where we all go to the cons, whether it's Gen Con or Essen or wherever, and I don't feel that, I feel like it is a very open place to be. As a gender comment, I feel very, but I'm also like, I have a math degree and I go to these geeky conferences, and I'm very much used to being in an audience of a lot of male, or in a space with a lot of males. I grew up with two brothers, so maybe I'm comfortable with that. But I do know that the industry has gotten a lot of flack lately, in terms of the way that, from a gamer perspective at cons, like how women are treated there. So it definitely exists. Like, we can't say it's all sunshine and lollipops. It's not. But I think that there's it's getting some well-needed attention as well. So, but from a company standpoint, we tend to want to be reflective, such that it's hard for us to do even like adult games. We all saw Cards Against Humanity come and was such a huge success. If we were ever to do something like that, we would scrub it so clean it's no longer necessarily an adult game. So it's a hard space for us to play in that regard.
To me, it's an interesting one. We've probably talked about this before. Hasbro as a company has a huge reach in terms of its audience, and I think that's a very powerful positive thing, you know, in terms of who's playing the game, in terms of economic access, you know, the diversity of the audience. You know, I was amazed watching two children who didn't speak the same language playing Uno together in a holiday camp. It was my daughter and a young child from Holland. Couldn't speak the language, but they were able to play Uno because they both had played it in their.
I wish that was a Hasbro,
countries.
but yeah.
Oh,
wrong company.
That's Mattel,
sorry,
isn't it?
Mattel.
That's
Yeah,
Mattel, but that's
My
okay.
bad.
It's a fantastic game.
Just buy it. So, but okay, so but the games that you do produce reach that kind of really wide audience, and I'd love to see that kind of like to what extent you can edge out the kind of risk taking a little bit to, because the potential impact you could have with the right kind of game could be incredible. You know, and I think that's the thing I kind of, you know, yearn to see happen, but when the risk is like everything gets scrubbed so clean because the fear of failure can be so catastrophic, then it errs on the side of caution and maybe doesn't get to make full use of that impact it could actually have as a company. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, and you know, sometimes it would be Hasbro's done different initiatives around, you know, different, whether it be charities or things that they're trying to get out in the world. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it doesn't need to be because that's not the point of it. I remember, I don't know if you all saw on Kickstarter, there was a wonderful female version of Guess Who? And it's I have it, but I don't know. Maybe it's in. This is only.
It was female inventors through the ages, and like, you know, notable women through the decades.
It was. Yeah, it's called. I think it was called "Who Is She" or "Guess She" or something. Anyway, by a woman in Poland. And so we actually contacted her because we were like, oh, this would be interesting. And it wasn't like, do you have red hair? Do you have glasses? It's like, are you a scientist? Are you like, and they gave little biographies on the cards or the plaque so that even if you didn't know who she was, you could say, oh, she did, you could see, you could read that she did that. And you weren't allowed to ask appearance questions. You were only allowed to ask like things about the character and their character. I thought it was brilliant. We talked to her, but in the end, it just wasn't viable for us to be able to do the numbers that we would have wanted to do. Now, thankfully, there's things like Kickstarter, or we have our own platform called Hasbro Pulse. And so sometimes that will be an area where we can test things to see, like, is this going to be of interest? Because if it's too small, then we can't afford to do that. Or even like Hero Quest we just launched. And it was really interesting to read a lot of the comments around that, like, how dare Hasbro or whatnot. But it's interesting because it's like we didn't know it was going to be successful or if it had a big enough fan base to be successful. But one thing we couldn't do is put out $150 retail game, right? So it was kind of testing the market for us to see that, okay, yeah, this still has interest with the audience.
I was really like biting back going, I'm not going to bring up Hero Quest in the conversation, but you did it. So one of the things, because I'm very conscious of time, and I know these conversations always become really interesting at this point. Like, I want to keep going.
Thanks very much.
And this might be a cheesy question, but is there something that you wish, like, both new, and it could be different things, new and experienced designers knew or understood about your roles?
We should really prep people before with your bombshell questions like this.
I would, yeah. I would
just think to the last time you got annoyed with somebody, and therein lies the answer.
I think this goes more out to European designers, maybe, because I don't experience that from US designers, I'd say, at all. Like, why does an agent take money? That thing. That's something. So, because sometimes it's hard for a designer to understand that even though they could or they do directly contact a publisher, there is that possible access, that it makes sense to work with an agent, and that this agent on top wants money for that. So I do this for a living. It's not my hobby. It's what I live off. It's my business. It's and maybe, how do I put it? Maybe they could consider it. Maybe it's a luxury. So it's a luxury that they pay for, that makes their outcome better. And they could decide to try it on their own, and maybe it takes a little longer, or they don't succeed at all, or whatever. But I guess I broaden their options and their possibilities. And we do invest a lot of time in the games too. And I don't pitch any game at all that I haven't played hundreds of times. So so that's something that I want designers to know, that this is my job, and I take every game that we have in our portfolio seriously, and I fall in love with every game that I have in my portfolio. But despite all my love for games, this is also my job.
Yeah. The thought that came to mind is like asking them, do you pay to use a toll booth? Because, you pay at a toll booth because you want to get somewhere quicker than it would take you to go through all the back roads and the normal route. And so, like, you're kind of like the toll booth. You help people get there quicker.
Next time somebody asks me that question, I will give that reference.
We're walking past you. We're walking past you at, like, Nuremberg when it's rescheduled for summer, and it's like, oh yes, I'm like the toll booth. And it's just like, God damn it.
Yeah. So that's it. And then the second thing, maybe be prepared. I'm very honest.
Okay.
Yeah, she will cut you. Yeah, she will cut you. Your dreams will be destroyed. Congratulations.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
No, I'm very polite.
But fun.
I was gonna say, to answer your question, Rory, I would say that if I'm rejecting your idea, I'm not rejecting you, I'm rejecting your idea, but it's not a rejection because it's bad. It's a rejection simply because it doesn't fit what we're looking for. And you have to trust that there's some reason why, because if there's the smallest chance that I think, because I want to get things into the company and us moving forward on things that are coming from the inventors. That's a big part of how, my success is measured. So if I never got anything into the company internally, I wouldn't be here for very long. So I've been breaking records, and I love that I can do that. But it's your there's a reason, and just listen to the reasons and learn something, rather than, if you think I've missed something, fine, clarify. But sometimes people push back because they're they don't understand why Hasbro, this makes the most, sense that Hasbro would do this. But we wouldn't. And I know that we wouldn't, because, it's too expensive, or we're not interested in that kind of thing, or whatever I say to you. But just know, it's just don't take it personally, and move on, kind of thing. Because once I've made up my mind, then it's not to say you can't change it, but if I've really understood your concept and I've made a decision, then there's reason for it. And if there's a slight chance that I think it could go somewhere, I will bring it in, kind of thing.
And can I just kind of clarify then with that? Do you see any parallel between that and how much someone has invested in the concept or the prototype that they're showing you? Because I've seen this at kind of New York Toy Fair, where I've walked around, and my heart breaks when I see someone pitching the next best thing, and they don't realize there's someone a couple of booths down from them pitching the same thing, and they're like, I have to make this work because I have just put, so much money into to this idea? Like, is there? And I'm trying to bring it back to then, what's the simplest thing that people can show you? But is there a parallel, do you find, with that degree of investment?
Not always, but there's definitely like when somebody has one idea and that's their baby and they've invested and remortgaged their home and everything in order to bring it to wherever they've got it in front of you, then there's a lot riding in that. So there's those rejections can be really hard on them because we might have been in their minds their ticket kind of thing. So absolutely, it's heightened, and the professionals move on. They're like, okay, let's not keep talking about that. Let's move on to the next thing because that might be the thing, and I want to show you that, and I don't want to run out of time. So, yeah.
Interesting.
That reminds me of, I'm going to get his last name wrong. Martin, is it
Gardner?
Martin, is it Kierkegaard from Denmark?
Nedergaard.
Yes.
Nedergaard.
Nedergaard, yeah. So Martin is just amazing. Like
Anderson, yeah.
He has that like cloth bag of stuff just coming out, and it's like, no, pass. Okay, next one.
I know. Did you see his like spreadsheets and charts? They're amazing. Like colored, yeah.
And everybody knows the Dan Creek's red suitcase.
Oh
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Which are getting rarer and rarer these days. Like inventors they're more likely to carry an iPad these days, it seems, than a big suitcase of prototypes kind of.
Yeah. Like every couple of months, I'm rethinking this too. Like, why do we carry all these prototypes around to the fairs and pitch and show them directly and not show them just folders and sell sheets and videos and stuff? But I don't know, maybe I'm too old school. I don't know. I think it's cool to have the option to actually play it.
Yeah, we all like the physicality of games. Yeah. So for us being there at sort of moment one of seeing something new, if that excitement is sort of completely within you, like, holy crap, I really, really want to play this. You want to play it there and then, or you want to play it that night instead of, send me the thing and I'll play it in a couple of weeks' time. It's like, understandable.
Actually, so I'll ask them very quickly about just that change now with people being kind of locked down. Are you using digital platforms or virtual platforms for reviewing and receiving prototypes from people?
A lot. Like we didn't miss a beat when things went to, well, for us for Hazard in the US, we went to work for home in March. And we will not open back up until at least the new year. So it's a big company. So there's a lot of things that have to be in place in order for us to all go back into an office. So, and games there's a huge lift happening in the pandemic, especially around Hasbro Classics. Like people are looking for those classic comfort food games. So we haven't missed a beat. So absolutely. It's still the same, still seeing people when instead of an event, there is a virtual sweep or a virtual, catchment of ideas that's happening. And then also in between, it's more so now, I think, which is great. So our pipeline is continually being fed, which is good. And it's all done virtually.
Cool. And how about you, Anita?
Yeah, we also when the first lockdown came, we kind of immediately started with a virtual game designer meeting, like the Monday evening thing that we have every week. And actually, it was interesting because it opened up for inventors who could usually not join us there because it was virtual, and all of a sudden, people from further away joined us. So that was cool and interesting, and a new experience. We used Tabletopia, for example, and designers use Tabletopia to pitch us games. Or what's it called? The other one?
Tabletop Simulator.
Yes, thanks. It's still not the same thing. It's still not the same thing than playing it in person, and the handling is horrible. And I guess I sometimes miss. Or the games don't develop the same fire maybe that you can have when playing it actually on the table with real like person sitting next to you. So there's more of seeing through the material, the components, the concept, and so when actually playing it.
I think you have to be a really good teacher to demo a game on Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. I've been pitching to our distributors, say, the new titles, and half the time I feel like I want to say this, the pace of the game is more to do with the virtual setting than the game itself, because there's a different feeling of buy-in to the game when you're doing it virtually and you're trying to help someone like how to pick up cards, and you can see they're getting flustered about the whole thing.
And then somebody drops out because of a bad connection.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. There's also a local games library here in Vienna. They have launched a series of game events that they usually do in their rooms. And the first time we joined them was also for we offered testing of a prototype, and we had scheduled half an hour in between the test groups. So they had to register, and so we already knew who was there, who we were going to expect, and so on. And we were like, half an hour is enough. So even if we have some overtime of the previous game, then we still have enough time to like get everyone in the room and explain how everything works. And it was such a fail. I mean, the other players were so nice because it was so well organized by the Spielebox, which is that library. So they contacted all of these people and said, would it be okay to reschedule for even half an hour later? And so it all worked out well in the end. But we learned a lot from that first thing.
I guess we're going to wrap it up then, because we've been at this for like an hour and a half, but it has flown by, it must be said. We always sort of like let people plug stuff at the end of every show. So Anita, let's kick off with you. If folks want to find you, how can they do so?
First, check out our website. That's www.whitecastle.at. If you end up at the burger company, try again. It's .at at the end for Austria. And there you'll find all the necessary contact details. You can also find us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/whitecastlegames. There it is. Thank you very much.
See, professional. It's all good. What about you, Tanya? What can people do if they want to?
Yeah, I want to see what you're going to put up, Michael. That's right. So I will say that if you're in the US, we do have a portal. It's called Spark. So I believe it's spark.hasbro.com or hasbro.spark.com. I always get them mixed up. But
I will search while you're talking.
Yeah, so there is if you're in the US, due to legal reasons, anytime you meet with Hasbro, we always have to have like an NDA or non-disclosure signed. So just know that. So anyway, that is within the Spark submission process. That's probably the easiest. If you're not, then thank you. Then you can contact people like Anita. There's other agents that we use. If I'm going to a show, it's sometimes easier to like you might have a chance if at a show to somehow connect with me, not at the show because usually my schedule's full on, but maybe leading in. There's some shows that are meant to where we go to specifically to meet new people. So the Mojo Nation event that just happened last month, that's one place. The one in November, and they're all now virtual, so it doesn't matter where you are. Shy Tag, that Mary Cousin that Rory you mentioned earlier. So Shy Tag's coming up in November. Again, that would be one way that you could actually pitch Hasbro. So
and that has an amazing kind of lineup of companies.
Oh yeah,
well. Not just Hasbro, like
Spin Master, Mattel. It tends to be more kind of more mainstream companies than the deep European, but it's always changing. So you should check out her website, ChitAG, ChitAG.com, and you can see all the different companies that are attending. So
Cool.
And for a small fee, I'll ensure that you bump into Tanya at some event.
There you go.
Somehow. All right, so Tanya, I know you've got a meeting at the half hour, so we will wrap this up now. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
I will be back with Rory on Friday, 2:00 UK time, for the next in our continuing Prisma Arena battle campaign, as I attempt to claw back more and more glory.
Some dignity.
Doesn't happen a lot. Some level of dignity. I got a little bit last week, not much, but some. But for now, also Monday, Untold Michael's birthday stream. So we're going to do an adventure about that as well. So we'll see how that goes. For now, though, we shall wave, and the end screen thing will come up, and we'll see you again soon. See you later. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.